My name is Carlos Herrera, and I'm the curator for the art gallery here. And I'm going to introduce you to Janet Cooling, and this is her artwork, and she's going to guide you through her journey. And hopefully, we'll get a little bit more information about her work. So, it's Janet Cooling.
All right. Let's see. I've never done a casual walkthrough before, so I don't know exactly what's involved in this, but I'll do the best I can. The earliest painting, and I'll just talk about the works in here briefly. I'm definitely not gonna try and interpret this work for you people. One of the hallmarks of this work, it's very personal work. I'm very interested in inventing symbols with this work. As you can tell, they're not realist paintings. They use the figure, they use imagery, they're image-based paintings. They're involved with the history of art. But, I kind of like the interpretation, excuse me, to be left open to the viewers. So, my stuff so in a way, rather than preach or really be specific, I'm more interested in some sort of narrative that's underneath all this, and some sort of event that takes place in your imagination. So I won't be explaining specific symbols probably. This painting was done in 1996. It's the earliest painting in the show, and it was shown originally at R.B. Stevenson Gallery. The reason we included it is a very important painting in terms of my whole career. There's times I've been painting over 25 years professionally, and you just know when there's key pieces. This is the last piece that was painted for the show at R.B. Stevenson. It was done in 1 month, and so it just sort of poured out. It was really the epiphany. It was the kind of the full-on end of the cycle of this series of paintings that I've been working on. And it contains I Remember My Family. It's called It's a Girl. And the painting is about being a woman painter. It's about the things in my life that drove me to become a woman painter. It's about the psychic and psychological underpinnings of why would somebody be driven to make art, to become a painter in the first place. And that's what that painting's about. The Bunny Man symbol's myself. I mean, that's running throughout the work. It's like a trickster character. There's a lot of persona in these invented characters. And so the one tip I'll leave you is that character's me. So just to start out with that. These paintings here came after the R.B. Stevenson show, the Hell's Kitchens, the sort of that first initial cycle. These are what belong to the second cycle. And again, like this painting, they're based on Renaissance, different Renaissance sources, the underlying structure, and then taking out the original spiritual symbols and taking out the original information and just restructuring them using that syntax of an underlying Renaissance painting. This painting is I'll talk about a little bit the symbolism. It's about the difference between real life and just your imagination, what happens with, I guess, your erotic imagination. It's like you've got a real life, but then you've got this whole other life to a certain extent. Maybe you don't. I don't really know. I do. So the painting is sort of in that zone, and it's feeling very explicitly with all that stuff between. It's like an American Beauty with that symbolism of, if you've seen that film with the young girl and the flowers, it's the same type of like thing that goes on in the imagination. So, same thing with this painting. They're very related paintings. the whole series of drawings felt like one body of work, and again, are connected to this. The whole show that we curated here is, I think Carlos used the word journey, and that's what it is. It's 3 years of worth of work. I tend to work in bodies of work, and I've worked a lot over the past 3 years, so there's been a lot of like changes in the work, and that's what this show is really ultimately addressing is the changes that have taken place in my work over a 3-year period. Some people would stay in one place, but that's not the kind of artist I am, that's not the way I work. So we carefully curated this show, picking these pieces to show these transitional moments, the strong pieces from each part of this work. But this is a very contained series of drawings. They're full color paintings on paper. I don't even think they're drawings, frankly. They're mixed media full color paintings on paper. You guys can ask questions at any point. I'm taking you through this now, and that's probably the easiest way to do it. Okay. Sorry, I didn't know how to do that smoothly.
You're doing fine.
Okay, that part of the room is the earlier part of the series. This painting was done in New York 2 years ago. And it was done during residency at Marie Walsh-Sharp Studio Foundation in New York. It was a grant I got. So I was in New York for approximately eight months 2 years ago. And I started to work on these very large-scale figure paintings. And this is a transitional painting into the later work. These are recent paintings. They're from the past. They have been painted since January, the 3 paintings over there. This is a figure study, charcoal study for some of the imagery in this new work. And then, let's see, the 2 studies over here were 2 small studies. And again, they're kind of breakthrough paintings. The reason they're here is something really happened in December. I've been working with figure painting, like trying to figure out specific techniques and specific ways to paint the figure for probably 2 years. It's been a little bit of an ongoing battle for me. And these paintings were definitely breakthroughs. I mean, they just all of a sudden it was like, zing, that's the way to do this. So that's kind of why we included them. And they then lead into these 3 paintings over here. These paintings are just really turning the corner in terms of how I actually really want these figures to look at this point. And then over here, this glass box. This is the my notebooks, and all of my ideas just sort of are these very raw drawings to begin with. I don't look at anything. I don't do anything. I work in my notebooks, and I'll work with usually pen and ink and watercolor at the most. And this was the first small study for the women bodybuilder paintings. And then this is a notebook of, I keep lots and lots of notebooks of clipped images that interest me. So that's why that's there. That's a big resource, and I have tons of this stuff.
Do you carry one around almost all the time?
Pretty much, or a camera or something. Yeah, I do. A lot of times I really just sit in my studio and work. I'll take days where I'll just sit and start processing these drawings and these ideas, because I have a lot of ideas, and they really need to come out.
How much time do you spend with the models?
I spend periods with the models, like Trish Lotzer. I photographed Trish over a period of months. Really worked with her quite a few sessions. I had a lot of ideas.
So are you drawing or just photographing?
Photographing and then doing the studies afterward, because the kind of painting I'm doing at this point, I mean, it would take 200 sittings to get where I want it to be. But I do work from the model a lot over the past 2 years. I've spent like 5-6 days a week every time I've been in New York, working with figure painting or figure drawing 3 hours a day period, just as a practice. Because I love doing it. It's honing my chops. So I work with both directly just doing that, but pretty much for my own material, I'm working from photographic references that I shoot, so.
Any more questions?
Somebody's having a good time.
Who is this girl again?
What? That's Trish Lotzer. She's no longer here. She's a law student and a professional model. She was the first professional model I ever worked with. She's a great model for these paintings.
Bodybuilder or is this?
She was a gymnast, okay? She's a gymnast during high school, so she's pretty developed.
What kind of things do you have to do to get a grant so that you can?
The grant I got, it was, I'll tell you the truth, it was 1 in 800 for that one. It was a really rigorous grant I got. It's a wonderful, it's a life-changing grant. I mean, being in residence there at that time, it's one of those life-changing situations, that particular grant. It's a new grant. Marine Wall Sharp has only been in existence about 10 years. So it's basically you send your slides and your resume and your packet of information. But it was 1 in 800. It was really rigorous. And it was actually my third try on that one, and then I got it. I was surprised. But I thought, 3 tries you're not going to get it, but I did get it.
And is there a specific place you look for all the grants in the outfield?
Yeah, you can go to a source like Art Calendar. They usually list a lot of them. Or that's just really, a lot of people go to that on the internet. But there's a lot of things that'll list fellowships for people. And that one was incredible. That's a life-changing one. The experience was really good. So.
When you say 1 in 800, or 800, 5%?
Yeah, and there were 807, as I recall, there were like 817 applications, 14 grants. So that's pretty rigorous, to say the least.
Is it just painting? Is that what?
No, I was one of the few painters there. There were a lot of people who were doing installation work, a lot of people, and the age range was just huge. All the way from like 20 years old, shown in the Museum of Modern Art, up to the oldest guy I ever got, I think, was 55. There's somebody there older now, as far as I know, but it's a really broad range, and not a lot of painters when I was there. So. And it's interesting, it's just a floor, it's down in Tribeca, very private studios, fantastic studios. One of the things that happened for me was I'd never worked in a studio that big, so all of a sudden I was making really large-scale paintings, and I hadn't had a studio like that before. I came back to San Diego and immediately built a studio that was very similar to the one that I had been working with, like the same size with huge wall space, so I could really continue that. And then it's just like I can come back and do the same. That was a big change.
Have you experimented with mixing any other media? Some of those over there are mixed with Prismacolor and
Yeah.
everything.
Just decals, toys. Earlier on, I was probably doing a lot more of that with, well, that's true. Earlier on, like say 10 years ago, I was putting decals on, putting photographs directly into them. I work with a lot of Xerox drawings, and some of the paintings are related to this. There's actually, my sketchbooks are Xerox, and then put there and then painted across that. So a little bit of collage with different collaging things. Not now with these. These are just, these are a little bit different. They're just, but I have. The thinking process is a collage thinking process. See, it's really collage thinking all the way to put these together. And one of the ways to integrate is just paint the thing. It's like rather than be all over the place, because it's total collage thinking to begin with.
Your theme seems to be around the empowerment of women.
Well, I think it's definitely painting some real powerhouses, for sure. I think there's a lot of things. I think that's one of them, definitely. And I think there's a lot of other things going on at the same time.
She's got a question.
Oh, hi.
Right. A lot of artists are very self-driven, and many of the most talented ones receive no recognition in their lifetime. So do you personally find yourself wondering how much of the recognition you're receiving is a result of your talent and how much is a result of your subject matter?
I'll tell you something. Artists work really, really hard, and many, many, many receive nothing, and that is really true to this day. I think it's a combination of like my talent, and I think it's a combination of working with subject matter that's important. Beyond me. In a way, I think it's beyond me. It's not something I choose to do because I think it would be a sensation, or thrilling, or vicarious. It's just I'm very moved to do certain things, and it's almost apart from me. It's like I really feel like in a way, if you really keep going with art, you go through these experiences where somehow your ego does drop away, and it better drop away. And then somehow you decide to carry something that's beyond. It's almost like what's needed. Good painting. Certain new ideas. New consciousness. What's needed.
So what are you trying to tell the audience with these paintings on the wall here?
I'd like to just leave it up to the audience. Leave it up to the critics to write about the work. I don't like to tell you what to think about this work. I like the audience to try to come to their own conclusions and different associations. I don't try to be that specific because I'm a painter. So it's. I said it earlier. It's very personal. So it's. I could tell you specifically, but I don't think that would matter in a way. Yes.
I have a question on this lady's pose. Is that kind of taken off from the Jesus Christ on the cross?
Oh yeah, it's definitely Christ pose. It's definitely got those associations. I think it's got those associations and others. It's very, yeah. A lot of these poses are playing with 19th century classical poses, poses from the history of art, and sort of popping in a really new kind of figure into it, like a very non-traditional reading of that symbolism or what that gesture would actually mean.
Kind of going with the big, powerful women type thing.
Yeah, well, I started painting women bodybuilders, and, yeah. That's what I've been
Did you feel that it gave more detail with all the muscles and everything? Or?
Yeah. Definitely. It's almost like it's like women are evolving so quickly right now, and there's a new woman's body, I think for women there's a new consciousness going on right now with them, with their bodies, like changing their minds about a lot of things having to do with their bodies. So I think the work's dealing with that because I deal with that. Okay? So, right?
Is there, are they exaggerated at all, or are they that big?
I'm going to tell you the truth. When I got the project that I got from the new museum, which opens at the end of this month, and there's a book coming out called Picturing the Modern Amazon. Now, they assigned me Fran and Val. Those are my two models. And I was painting strong women before I got out there, but I'm telling you, for me, it was like incredible. I was shocked when I had to really start working with them. And it was like through the process of painting, they just became totally beautiful. For me. But for me, honestly, it really rocked my idea of what I was looking at completely. It really did alter my thinking quite substantially to work with those women, and they're incredible women. They're absolutely incredible women. But again, it was like it's a culture. It's a whole culture, and it's not a culture that I'm part of. And so at the same time, I felt like, Diane Arbus going into this culture. It was like, wow, it was really different. It was a fabulous experience. And they're the sweetest, most interesting people. They're very interesting people to talk to. It was good for me. It was good for me to really deal with different And I tell you, I was grilled real heavily. Most of the artists in the show were, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about these bodies? How do you feel looking at these women? It's like, they didn't want you if you couldn't deal with it, right? I was interviewed, okay, by the curators. I mean, and they wanted to know where I was coming from. I said, oh, this is great. This is what I'm interested in. You know, truthfully.
Is it just a painting show or is it a?
No, it's multimedia. It's going to deal. It's more of a philosophical show. I mean, to tell you the truth, it's going to be really. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's the whole new museum, and it's going to be a big deal. And the women bodybuilders are performing at the opening. Like Fran is going to perform, is doing like a whole thing that night. So it's all media. I don't know how many painters are even in the show.
So this was a premise by the curators about.
Oh yeah.
It seems kind of odd because usually you think about a show where curators kind of see that something's going on and they put together a show about that, you know, within the art world. But this seems like they're looking at.
This is within the world.
Right, exactly, and they're assigning artists to come up with their view of that.
So, you know, the precedents for the work are like Mapplethorpe with the Lisa Lyons photographs. I mean, it was done 20 years ago. I mean, that work was never well received, but truthfully, you know, if you go back and look at the Lisa Lyons, there's been all these historical beginnings of these ideas. I mean, they're incredible. They're incredible photographs.
It's an interesting way for the museum to intervene in the art world, and they're actually becoming a patron as opposed to a collector in a way.
Yeah. It's the three curators, one, the woman who came up with the idea is a cultural historian and a top woman bodybuilder like 10 years ago. So she's like almost a cultural warrior, you know, cultural historian, warrior, philosopher. And then two art historians signed on board. And then the museum went with the idea. I think it's because something's going on in the culture, and it hits so many points of like what's going on in terms of ideas of representation of the female body. Just so many ideas in the show, I think, basically.
And it's a range of artists.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Matthew Barney's in it. I mean, all the way from Alfred Leslie, Matthew Barney, Louise Bourgeois is in the show. I mean, a lot of people in the show, so it's going to be an interesting show. Great opening, I'm sure. So we'll be there.
Question, what major artists inspired you?
Plenty. It's just plenty of art. I love, let's see, Persian art, Renaissance art, Matisse, Robert Mapplethorpe, Karen Finley, Larry Pittman, just a lot. I like a lot. I'm very eclectic. I like a lot of different kinds of art. A lot. I love painting, always. So I'd have to say a lot. I particularly love people like, let's see, Gauguin, Redon, and Matisse, certain periods of really dealing with color.
Well, thank you for attending the lecture, walkthrough, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Jan.